Hi everyone, welcome to this video on the body defences lesson within the Human Body Part 2 scheme of work. In this first video for this lesson, I'm just going to show you how I would very quickly go through the body defences that our body has with my students. So firstly, I would draw a person. When I draw people, they tend to be kind of gingerbread people, so yeah, nothing too elaborate needed. And I would draw a face, which I don't usually do, but actually it's really important here because if we think back to the big idea that's linking together all of the lessons in this sequence, the big idea is that communicable diseases, which is many diseases we're familiar with, communicable diseases are caused by pathogens entering the body and causing changes within it. So the first thing to point out to students is, well, okay, where can pathogens enter the body? And actually, there's not that many places pathogens can actually get in. So one thing you can point out straight away is that covering the whole body, you have this layer of skin. And the skin has many functions, but one handy function that it has is to act as this barrier that goes around the whole body. So that's the first thing you can say is there's actually very few places pathogens can get in because the skin is just stopping it getting into the blood, getting into the bloodstream at all. So then if we look at, okay, well, where can pathogens get into? Well, we've got three really obvious places on our faces. One is the eyes. So in terms of the eyes, what defenses do we have to stop pathogens from getting in? One is the fact that we've got eyelashes. So these can collect dirt and things like that. They trap pathogens. They can brush little bits of dust and dirt away to keep anything from getting into our eyes in the first place. And what I'm going to do here, I mean, I could label this with eyelashes if I wanted to, but actually I'm probably just going to talk through this with students and say, okay, remembering that pathogens need to get in, well, what do you think the eyelashes might do? We know we've got eyelashes. Well, I guess they kind of bat the pathogens away, and that's kind of what they're doing. The other thing the eyes have is tears, and tears are not just there for the sake of when we're sad. Tears actually have chemicals in them which can kill pathogens. So again, there's a question later, why do your eyes water if you touch them with dirty hands? Well, it's because your eyes are trying to kill the pathogens that may have entered in that way. So that's one place. The next thing we can look at is the nose and the mouth, and these are both kind of linked. So what I would do here is just show that inside the nasal passage, and I could add a kind of little tube that goes around here like this, because it's kind of connected to the mouth and then to the trachea. But I can draw some little hairs in here, and these are called cilia. So I'm going to do that here. So we've got these little hairs called cilia, and I am going to make a note of that. Eyelashes, I don't think I need to make a note of. I think they're familiar with that. This is a new word though, and it's really important that we give them that new word. So we've got these cilia, these little hairs, and we've also got mucus, and they will know that as snot or words to that effect, but we've got mucus as well, and that might be a new word to many of our students, so I'm going to label that as well as mucus. So that's really important. And we've got the same inside the lungs and the rest of the respiratory system. So I'm just going to do it down here, but you can do some more even further down as well if you wish. And I'm going to show that inside the lungs here, and again, this is building on prior knowledge that they have from the Human Body Part 1 scheme. They're familiar with the trachea, the bronchioles, the bronchi, the alveoli, and so on. But I'm going to show that this is mucus here as well, and that we've got these cilia inside the respiratory system too. So they're the three orifices, or well, how many? 5 orifices on the face that somehow need protecting, and we've shown the defences that we have to protect there. Another place that we've not talked about, which is to do with the mouth actually, the other way they can get in through the mouth is through the digestive system. So what we can show here is that if instead of breathing in pathogens happen to enter through the food we eat or the water we drink or so on, what we've got here is the stomach. And again, I tend to draw the stomach just a bit like a rugby ball. Nothing too elaborate. And what I'm going to do here is show that the stomach is filled with hydrochloric acid. I'm going to label that there. And one of the things that hydrochloric acid does is that if any pathogens enter the stomach, the hydrochloric acid kills them. They can't survive in such acidic conditions. So that's another defense we've got there. Now, the final thing to talk about is a bit like the skin, one that's all over the body, and that's the blood. Now, we're going to come to when we look at the immune system, we're going to look at white blood cells in a lot more detail. For now, you can just tell them that we have these things called white blood cells that help to fight off disease. So one thing you could do is, if you zoom in, let's just zoom in on a random blood vessel somewhere. If you zoom in on a blood vessel, again, this is building on prior knowledge from last year. So one thing you can do is show these white blood cells, and we'll look at the different ways in which they fight pathogens in a later lesson. But you can just add a note here, white blood cells. These will probably be new to many of our students. And then you can also say there are these very handy little things called platelets. So I'm going to draw these kind of little dots here, like this, label those as platelets. And you might want to just tell students this, or you could ask them some questions about, well, okay, let's imagine on the knee, how might you end up with part of the knee exposed? How might it be possible for pathogens to somehow get into the knee? And the idea that you want to elicit from students is that, well, if you fall over on the playground or somewhere else and you cut your knee, what you've done is create an opening for pathogens to possibly get in. So actually, you've got to be really, really careful if you cut your knee to wash it and so on to make sure the pathogens can't get in. But what you can tell them is about a second defense mechanism inside the blood, which is the fact that the platelets clump together and form scabs. So we can just put a little scab on here, and we'll label that. And what's important is that you make sure they're clear that the reason scabs form is because there are these platelets inside the blood. So I think that's all of the body defenses that we need to cover for the purposes of this lesson. And again, this is just an introduction, remember. And just to emphasize the big idea that we're getting across here in this lesson, I mean, all of this is useful in itself. How are we going to help students remember it? We help them remember it by always coming back to the big idea, which is about pathogens. How can we stop pathogens from getting in? And if you really emphasize that, then I think you're going to help them build this conceptual scheme in their mind, which is going to help them as they come to the application questions later in this lesson. And I'll do a separate video about those application questions, which will also be added to the slides.